This deck plays a little bit differently than other decks, where you often are willing to take damage. I will have games where I have a widespread ruin and choose not to activate it on purpose, as it will lower my life points and let me maximum summon and KO the opponent on the next turn. Something may immediately stand out, and that is that we have 6 level 7 or higher monsters and 5 level 6 monsters. This seems incredibly bricky, but it's alleviated by the Magnum Overlord skill, which lets you treat any maximum piece as a tribute fodder for any other card in your hand. So you can discard any of these and bring out a 7-zone magician. And my list here is trying to take advantage of it. As you can see, we have most elements in the deck, including a 1-of Dory auto for Earth, some fire golems, and 2 Axel Wonder splats. Sometimes you'll be able to win the game off of the pressure of this card alone, without ever using a maximum summon. Moving on, we have Axel Wonder Splat, which is able to put more cards in the graveyard, which synergizes with Talismanic Seal Array and Monster Reincarnation. The extra mills, of course, can also set up more attributes for 7-zone Magician. Dog Magician Girl is not very good, but it does have more defense than Ancillor. I've considered going either way on this card slot, or even making it a low level entirely. Magician's Valkyria is the legend of choice, as it is, I'm pretty sure, the only one you're allowed to use. And of course, as always, it has synergy with Light Sorcerer of Sanctity. Torn of the Windweaver is an important card for getting to your opponent's life points. Additionally, having 1 tribute monsters means you're able to tribute off a Magnum Overlord after you've maximum summoned it. You usually don't want to summon this unless you are going to win the game immediately. However, every now and then there will be a board state that necessitates it, and then your opponent is going to go ahead and set 3 monsters, stalling you out. You can tribute off for Torna, and then try to get in for game using Torna's effect, or something like Shining Shaman. Shining Shaman is another light spellcaster, here for Light Sorcerer, and it is our version of pushing through for game. A lot of players are running Stop Defense or Pierce in this slot, but by running another monster, we are a little bit more consistent than other variants of the deck. We have the rest of the maximum pieces, and then Fire Golem. This card may not seem that important, but we aren't actually using it for the debuff. We are using it to pay 600 life. You summon a Fire Golem before you perform your maximum summon, and then you can deal 600 additional damage to the opponent after you activate Blue's effect. We round out with another copy of Light Sorcerer, which of course would be a Light Sorcerer of Sanctity if I owned it. Moving on to the spell and traps, we have 2 Talismanic Seal Arrays. This has some synergy with all of the milling we do with our card effects, and it also helps Magnum Overlord get in for game. Then we have Widespread Ruin, which is a self-explanatory card, and Music Resistance Recital, which works for managing our own life points. Additionally, if they are playing Thunder and try to out the maximum monster without simply destroying it, Recital will work, as a maximum summon monster counts as just 1. All this said, this list has been doing pretty well for me, but it is also a deck I am still tinkering with. Stay tuned for the later half of the video, and I will show you a modified version that I went on a 7-game win streak with. But for now, let's get into the replays. In this first game, we actually open with all 3 pieces of the maximum, so I choose to pass turn and allow the opponent to swing into me and lower my life points. They bring in a 7-zone Magician and activate the effect. They summon some additional monsters, but then choose not to attack at all. They already knew what I was planning. We use our own skill, realizing that we have to play the game. So we bring in Torn of the Windweaver and activate the effect just to see what we flip up, and thin our hand for later. We destroy 7-zone Magician and pass turn again. Zombeetle flips up a Mystic Dealer and then uses the effect. Maximum Overload brings in another monster, which they reveal to be a second 7-zone Magician. They change out monster to defense mode to kind of play around my maximum monster, but they swing in and pass turn. We again, of course, have the maximum, set the Valkyria, and attempt to beat the 7-zone Magician. Then we pass. It's my opponent's turn, and they decide to actually go in for some damage now. They activate Pierce, switch their monster to attack, and get ready to burst. Magician comes in. We have a recital, but we choose not to do it since it is not lethal. They pass without attacking with the other monsters, but by putting this monster in attack mode, it is too late for them. We maximum summon, activate the effect, boost up, and swing in to the opponent's piece for game. Things look rough. We have opened with 3 monsters that are all level 7 or higher. No other deck in the game would be able to come back from this, especially when they draw a 4th tribute monster. However, thanks to us using our skill, we are able to bring in the 7-Zone Magician, set a card, and beat over the Harpy Lady Sisters. We put a piece back on top of the deck, and it is their turn. However, they brick. They are unable to out the 7-Zone Magician, and now it is time for us to make our comeback. We use the skill to set Dark Magician Girl and clear out some of the cards. We are keeping the 7-Zone Magician in hand, so when they out our own board, we have something strong to beat them back with. They pass again, and we bring in a Fire Golem before trading off for Axel Wonder Splat. We are just thinning our hand to make it more likely we draw into a maximum on a future turn. And we are putting more cards in the graveyard, so if we ever end up with the wrong piece, but the milled piece in the graveyard, we can grab it. Same thing goes for Monster Reincarnation. Once again, they are bricking. And this is actually an issue. As you can see, we have milled both copies of Torn of the Windweaver. So the opponent would be able to indefinitely stall us if they so chose. However, when you're beating over 3 face-down monsters every turn, the opponent will brick or deck out before you do. However, they do decide to swing in with a Harpy Lady Sisters, and that means it is our move. We use Magnum Overlord to bring back the second 7-Zone Magician, which is what I was waiting for. We activate the effect and head into battle, beating over the Sisters for 2300. Their life points are getting dangerously low. Another face-up monster without ending me is going to be enough for my Maximum monster to end the game. So I decided to just keep swinging in. We have Magnum Overlord, and we have nothing else to do but wait. Eventually, they will be forced to respond, and they choose to summon Harpy Lady Sisters once more. They activate the effect, boosting it up to 3100. They clear out 7-Zone Magician, but it is over for them. It's our move. We draw. Activate the Talismanic Seal Array, which is going to help us push in for even more damage. 1000 attack loss. We do have a second Talismanic Seal Array to further debuff the Harpy Lady Sisters. And with only 100 attack, it has no way of defending from this. Sending a Curvebot to the graveyard and summoning Invasion. This is going to be able to completely wipe our board. And with Shadow Buyer going to level 8, it is also attacking directly for a total of 3500 damage. We are in a bind. However, we are at 2 pieces of Magnum Overlord. We set our headpiece, summon Valkyria, and clear the board back. We don't deal nearly as much damage, but getting rid of the major threats is still important. Since we had 2 copies of the head, we still have 2 of the 3 pieces we need to maximum summon and turn the game around. We see a Babysitter Goat go into the graveyard, but they discard the King's Majesty, the best way to stop our monster. Heavy Metal eats our Valkyria, but we do have Widespread Ruin to stop the attack, and now their field is entirely open. We don't have the maximum, but we do have 2 monsters we are able to summon and swing in with. It might seem weird to choose the Shining Shaman instead of the Fire Golem, but this is actually for a very specific reason. If the opponent has a Heavy Metal, that is going to be a 2500 attack point monster. If we summon 2 monsters with the same attack, Doriado and Fire Golem, both at 1200, they can eat one and then destroy the other for an exact lethal. If they summon Royal Level's Invasion instead, our entire board is being cleared, so it doesn't matter which ones we summon. By summoning the Shining Shaman, we are able to survive even against a Heavy Metal play. Currybot back into the hand for a nice +1. Remember, after they activate the skill, they aren't able to actually attack with more than 1 monster, unless they've drawn a Shadow Buyer, or just draw incredibly well and can get 2 tribute monsters out. we see Invasion come in for 2300, and we are hanging on by a thread. However, when all hope seems lost, we draw blue. And with Supreme Machine Magnum Overlord on the board, this game is over. We boost up and swing in. Before we move on to the next replay, let's highlight a small change I made to my deck. I removed the Talismanic Seal Rays to put in an extra Dory Auto and Fire Golem. This means we're going to have more monsters consistently and reduce the bricking just a little bit. However, we lose out on some big OTK swing potential. On the other hand, by having extra monsters, we might be able to deal more damage early in the game and then not need the extra buff to OTK. Additionally, without any spell and trap removal in the deck, I wasn't finding the Talismanic Seal Array shuffling stuff back to be that important. So, if some people do choose to run both Ghost Cyclone and Talismanic Seal Array, and if they do, that probably means taking out the Music Princess's Recital, because 8 spell and trap cards is way too many. Some players are also on Magical Stream, as of course the deck does indeed have many spellcaster monsters. But Ghost Cyclone does provide that extra draw early in the game and combos very well with the Seal Array. We're also locked to spellcasters and machines, so some other cards you could include are Mystic Dealer to discard and draw extra cards, but I don't find this one all that useful, due to it being kind of awkward with all of the machine monsters in the deck. And a lot of the time, the cards you are discarding are going to be another copy of itself, or something that you could already be using for your plays. Additionally, you could be running Aim Eagle in order to bring out a 2900 headpiece, which is okay, but it probably isn't going to come up nearly enough to be worthwhile, especially when it is another light monster in addition to all of the other cards you are already running, like Light Sorcerer of Sanctity and Magician's Valkyria. 7-Zone Mage offers another way to debuff your opponent, but I haven't found it to be all that important. Cards like Fire Golem are already able to give you a boost, and getting both Mage and 7-Zone Magician on board doesn't happen nearly as much as it feels like it should. Instead of Dory Auto, some players are running Strange Cat, and that is a tech for the Royal Level matchup. This lets players have it flipped up, and then it'll be destroyed by the opponent's heavy metal, giving them no boost. Unfortunately, I don't really like it in this deck, as none of our monsters are 2500, which means denying the boost from heavy metal doesn't actually stop it from killing us, or beating over the monster. That said, let's get into this replay. We are up first, and we have 2 copies of the headpiece, and we draw the third, so of course we are going to be bringing them out. And then we tribute off the headpiece for a splat, just to have a better defense monster on the board. They draw into Essel and steal our tributed head. Then they summon a Harpy Lady and attempt to swing over our monsters. However, without a boss monster of their own, Dory Auto remains stable. We draw for turn, and we find the green piece. Again, we are overloaded on red pieces, so we bring it onto the field and debuff the opponent's monster. They set 3 and pass. We bring in the splat and start milling, and then boost up the Fire Golem just in case we run into a 1400 defender like Harpy Lady. Unfortunately, we do not get to clear the board for this reason. The opponent sets 2 monsters and summons a pet dragon. With 2700 attack, it is able to beat over anything we own. But Widespread Ruin is here to seal the deal. We draw for turn, use Splat, and then tribute off for the 7-Zone Magician. Now that we have more attributes in the graveyard, it's going to provide a huge damage swing. We activate the effect, go up to 3600, put in a Light Sorcerer to make sure we're able to clear the pesky 1400s, and then we get in for 3600. The opponent is going to need to find an out this turn, but they only set 2 monsters, which means it's done for them unless they activate Widespread Ruin, which it seems they have not found. In the previous replay, we saw the opponent was stuck on 3 back row, and they were all bluff spells. It's not something I like to have happen to me, especially when it means you have to manage the number of boss monsters in your deck. That is why I prefer decks with only 4 spell and trap cards total, though it does sometimes go up to 6 if you're trying to slot multiple things in. Moving on to this much more important aggro matchup, we flip over a 7-zone Magician plus a Torna, and we deal nearly 2,000 damage. We bring it over to Roa, who activates Hammer Crush Deal. But again, I'm not running very many spell and trap cards, so there's nothing for them to actually pop right now. Seahorse Carrier uses the effect, and they are going to be bringing in some boss monsters. 7-zone Magician is revealed, alongside a Kanon who goes into Cybertech Alligator. 7-zone Magician boosts on up and reveals another attribute, an Ancient Arise Dragon. We draw for turn, and that Hammer Crush remains dead, even as we find our maximum monster. We bring it out, as we have 4 pieces. Supreme Machine Magnum Overlord is able to activate both of its effects, and they immediately concede, even though I am pretty sure that wasn't lethal. Last up, we have a duel against someone I recognize from Discord servers, Yoshi. We start off with a pretty interesting play here. We only have low-level monsters to set, but I still choose to use the effect, and I place a Fire Golem here. This is because it's going to make the opponent think it has a chance of being a high-level monster. So, by placing the Magician's Valkyria with 1800 defense, they will focus all of their energy on the monster I set, thinking it is a boss. And then, after their boss monster runs into it, the low-level monsters they have left over would not be able to clear the Valkyria. This is a very intentional play, and we are about to see it pay off. Trick Pigeon tributes off for a Harpy Lady Sisters, and then they bring in Faith Bird and a Harpy Lady. Hysteric Force flips over the monster they think is potentially a 7-zone Magician. They clear it out, but are unable to deal with Magician's Valkyria and take 500. Had I set the Magician's Valkyria with the skill, it would have been cleared and I would have lost my entire board. We go ahead and cheat out the Wonder Splat before bringing in a Dark Magician Girl and keeping Torn of the Windweaver for later. We're about to clear the board, and there is a pretty good chance they are not going to be able to respond to 3 monsters all above the 1500 threshold. So Torn of the Windweaver is still in hand, specifically so that if they set monsters on the next turn, we will be able to summon it out and get in for damage. Exactly this happens. Splat activates the effect, and then we tribute for Torna. We discard the Fire Golem, flipping up a Grace Princess, and we swing in for a huge amount of damage. Overall, I would say we have been playing this game very cleanly, but it is fair to say Yoshi has gotten a little bit unlucky by not being able to bring out any boss monsters last turn. Harpy Lady Sisters shuffles back into the deck, and they set to back row. However, Magician's Valkyria protects Torna, so we are able to clear the Harpy Lady Sisters very easily. But we draw into the maximum and choose to win that way instead. We know that Recital can't stop a maximum, and neither can Widespread Ruin. They activate their trap card, Counter Pigeons, but it is not enough, and we finish it. That's going to wrap up this video. Thank you to everyone who watched, and special shout out to my Twitch subscribers and YouTube members, Ironiclass and Rafflesia. If you made it to the end of the video, may I interest you in another.